users who care about crypto should have access to all of the latest and greatest apps on their phone. They shouldn't be chained to their desktop. They shouldn't have to do weird, wonky workarounds of in-app browsers and wallets or trying to install extensions. Our vision is that native mobile apps are going to be the best place for crypto to succeed. If we've just built a phone that does the same stuff that the other phones do, and carries the same apps that the other phones carry, and the only difference is that some developers don't get charged the same fees, then we weren't successful. Things have to be truly unique, truly different, and that starts and ends with the apps that are built for our store. What will make Solana Mobile and mobile on crypto generally a success is great apps that people actually want to use.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first installment of Moon Talks, a series by Moonwalk Fitness that you can listen to while you get your daily steps in with our gamified accountability app. I'm Caitlin Cook, Moonwalk's Director of Growth. Today, I'm joined by Emmett of Solana Mobile. Emmett, welcome.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me, Caitlin.
Of course. Very excited for this. Emmett is our first guest on Moon Talks because it is Seeker season, baby. The Solana Seeker, the definitive Web3 mobile device, is now being delivered to homes around the world with over 150,000 pre-orders. Moonwalk is very proud to be a launch partner for the Seeker, offering Seeker owners a 20% boost on XP accumulation in the Moonwalk Fitness app. Basically just meaning that it will help them climb the leaderboard more quickly and become eligible for upcoming rewards games that are coming up very soon. First things first, Emmett, let's start with a quick intro on you, your background, and what you're doing now, just to get into the mission of Solana Mobile and why you're building a crypto native phone.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Emmett. I am the general manager of Solana Mobile. Let's see. I joined the team right at the beginning. So about 3.5 years ago, when Anatoly and a really small group of folks at Solana Labs said, hey, we want to figure out this problem of bringing mobile and crypto together. Because at that time, those two things were happening totally independently. And frankly, they still kind of are in many ways. So I was lucky enough to get on board. I was the second team member. And for the last 3 or so years, I've just been helping us slowly and steadily build this business. You know, we launched a phone a bit over 2 years ago called Saga. That was kind of our starting point. It was us showing our intentions, trying to identify what problems we wanted to solve and come up with sort of the first working versions of those things, and then carry forward another 2 years. And we're now at Seeker, which we've just started to ship in the last month here, and really carrying forward the same set of problems. You know, we're at the end of the day, we want to give developers who care about building crypto applications more fair distribution. We want them to have access to a global audience free of some middle person who's setting rules and charging fees. And from a user perspective, we think users who care about crypto should have access to all of the latest and greatest apps on their phone. They shouldn't be chained to their desktop. They shouldn't have to do weird, wonky workarounds of in-app browsers and wallets or trying to install extensions. It's not a way forward. And so we've been trying to solve that problem both through hardware and software for the last 3 years.
It's been such a long time coming too. I know before we started recording, we were talking about, for Moonwalk personally, we've always aimed to be mobile first since day one, because that's where mainstream consumers are and what they're used to, right? They're used to downloading an app. Can you talk to me a little bit though, for those who aren't familiar from, an engineering perspective, at least, the current state of the App Store, Google Play? If you are typically building a mobile app, what does that experience look like? What are the limitations, and how is Solana in the dApp Store, solving for a better alternative?
Yeah, maybe a helpful point for those who know a little bit less about app development is to just talk about it in a Web 2 context first, which is over the last 15 or so years, there's been a totally new avenue for businesses to operate in, which is mobile apps. So, as soon as the iPhone launched in 2008, the first version of the iPhone was just Apple's apps. They created this new idea of a home screen, and you tap a button on the home screen and then something full screen takes over, and it has a totally different design paradigm. You're using your thumb or your pointer to tap on a screen, you're pinching, you're zooming. Those were all totally new paradigms that didn't exist. People had only just gotten familiar with using a mouse on a computer, and then Apple and a few others kind of reset what it means to be on the internet. And so shortly after they launched just their apps, they opened up the first version of the App Store. And Google was doing a very similar set of motions, basically in parallel on Android. And so since that kicked off, developers have been able to build their own mobile apps, which from a user perspective, offers just a much more seamless way to interact. You don't have to like go into a web browser to do every little old thing. You get to take advantage of a lot of what's native and great about phones. Things like GPS, camera, notifications, things that you don't do on a computer, right? I always have notifications on my computer off because they're not easy to make sense of. It doesn't matter where my computer is from a GPS perspective. The camera I really only use for Zoom. I'm not taking pictures of my office every day, but phones have really found a way to make all of that data more useful and interesting. And so as a builder, you go through the process of basically building up an app from scratch. The coding, the tools that exist, the libraries that exist have gotten a lot better with time. And obviously, as somebody who's used lots of mobile apps over the years, the apps themselves have also gotten a ton better. Things like Instagram, Twitter, banking apps, things that didn't exist 10 to 15 years ago are all of a sudden so seamless and borderline addicting and constantly on them. But all of those tools that exist, the ability to build an easy app and then the ability to ship it to an app store comes at a price. If you're a builder and you want to take advantage of those tools and that distribution, you have to play by the rules of the two major app store builders in Apple and Google. And so that means they're setting the policies and they're setting fees that you have to accept. And the truth is, for most developers, it's worth it. To get in the pockets of billions of users around the world, you're willing to give up 15, 20, 30% of the revenue that you generate. But with crypto, that economic model doesn't work. One of the main theses of Web3 is that there are no middlemen. There is nobody in the middle trying to take that value. Value should be a direct transfer from one party to another. And so adding a 30% tax doesn't make any sense. And not only that, even if you could stomach it, the tools just aren't there to build really seamless mobile crypto apps. Web2 apps have easy access to things like Apple Pay and Google Pay and all these great services. The same doesn't exist for crypto. And so users are stuck with pretty lousy UX. And we've been slowly trying to fix that and give builders better distribution.
I feel for a long time, at least anecdotally, like looking around at a lot of the products in the space, that there has been I don't want to say lack of a focus on user experience, but it seems like there is definitely a lull for quite a while. Just thinking of how long it's been that, mobile native like experiences and building apps is not really top of mind, and people are more so, I feel like, settling in a lot of cases to, get access to a product and have to sit on their desktop and jump through hoops of user experiences that might be subpar. I feel like we're at a turning point with this, not even just with the seeker specifically, but more generally in terms of the landscape and trying to push more to a mainstream audience and more conversation around crypto consumer apps and what that actually looks like. Are you feeling the same from the teams that you've talked with in the process of getting the seeker live and working with launch partners? What does that look like on your side?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So we've definitely seen that. A lot of teams building in our space are very tech driven, right? It's engineers who are super excited about the blockchain and decentralization and all of these new internet paradigms. And that's really cool and super interesting and is a worthy pursuit. But just because the technology is cool and interesting doesn't mean it's something that people are going to want to use, right?
Shocking.
Building something that people want to use requires thought about product and design and UX and all of these more nuanced considerations. And I would say in the 3.5 years that I've been working on Solana Mobile, just now in these last couple of months is when I feel like we've started to really turn a corner. We're starting to see teams build mobile first. We're starting to see teams simplify their experiences, right? Like a good mobile app is a simpler mobile app, not a more complicated mobile app. And so we're like, to your point, we're starting to see a shift there. And that leaves me extremely bullish for our ecosystem because, if people can actually build apps that users want to use that solve their problems, then we've got so much room to grow as opposed to just focused on, oh, well, this is cool tech. It's not very usable. It's really hard to explain, but there'll be some hardcore audience who just chews glass and deals with it anyway.
Right. And I think we don't really, I think we take that for granted at times, right? I always try to say to people, and I think about this with Moonwalk as well, we are very privileged working in crypto and working in the Solana ecosystem to have a go-to group of beta testers that's willing to put up with a bad experience. And in some ways, I think that sort of has been the Achilles heel of like there are people who will put up with it. Oh, people like this product. It's fine as is. We have X number of users, or whatever the excuse may be. But that's not really a great reflection of the broader consumer landscape, because I really don't think the mainstream consumer is as forgiving when it comes to experience, right? And I do think mobile apps are also more. I'm not a developer, so kind of thinking of the right way to put this, but not quite as customizable if you don't have an actual app where you're able to send custom notifications and have a much more direct interaction with the user versus them being in web browser, if that makes sense. That's something we've been thinking about with Moonwalk, but I think it would come into play for tons of different products. I know that's something Jupiter Mobile, for example, has been focusing on as well. So it's been very encouraging to see more of those conversations coming about, because those are the nudges in the small things that are really the big things when it comes to users using your product and then coming back to use it again.
Totally. Yeah. Native, specifically native mobile experiences. So not mobile web experiences, but true standalone apps like what you guys are building at Moonwalk. That is where the differentiation is going to happen. Because if you have to like go to a browser every time you want to launch something, you can't be notified. You have to do all sorts of weird camera and GPS stuff. It's always going to feel too awkward. And so our team is extremely bullish on the future of native mobile apps. We're excited to be working with teams like yours who see the same vision and want to really experiment in that space. Because otherwise, if it just ends up being a bunch of web apps, then you could just run it in a web browser. You don't need special hardware. You don't need special software. You're just looking at a bunch of different websites. And so totally agree with you there. I think the biggest opportunity space for builders in Solana and crypto more broadly is to take native mobile very seriously.
And let's talk about Solana Mobile's other launch partners. What were you as a team looking for and optimizing for when reaching out to teams, having conversations with builders, in terms of, what you wanted to spotlight and, things of that nature?
Yeah, we've been fortunate because we've pre-sold 150,000 seekers. The addressable market is much more meaningful for teams in our space. When we had launched Saga a couple of years ago, we were in the low single-digit thousands of phones, and then sort of all at once sold out. But by then it was kind of too late to engage with teams. And so when we got to step up and build Seeker as our second device, and we knew we had pre-sold 150,000 of them, the conversations were frankly much easier. We had plenty of teams that we knew, who we respected, who were really taking their time to build thoughtful apps, either come to us or we could come to them. And the opportunity and the addressable markets kind of spoke for itself. You mentioned earlier that a lot of crypto users are sort of that early adopter persona, the people who are willing to deal with sort of subpar experiences. That's definitely true of people who bought Seeker, but what's also true is this is a group of people who are willing to spend money and trade and try things and create new businesses for people who are building apps. And so as we sort of set out to launch Seeker season, which is starting very shortly, we wanted to find the teams who were going to be building for us no matter what. We didn't want to have to go to a team and convince them of the opportunity, convince them that the audience was worth building for. We wanted teams who were genuinely excited. Their beliefs were aligned with ours with regards to the future of mobile and crypto, and teams who we could rely on for building a high quality experience that can prove the art of the possible of where mobile and crypto can work best together. So we were fortunate to have a lot of conversations. We've had a ton of teams already kind of sign up to be bringing something exclusive in the coming months to our users. But there are even more teams who have been coming in every single day. And so we're lucky, we're fortunate. But I think if you're a user and you're sort of gearing up for Seeker season, all of the teams who are bringing something to the table are bringing it for the long haul. This isn't meant to be a flash in the pan. This isn't we're a team that's going to be featured for 1 week, so you got to be first in line, be one of the first 10 people, you'll get it, and then it's over. These are much more longer running programs. The intention here is to build something that's sustainable and exclusive for a long time.
And I think what you just said about the long term speaks to Solana Mobile's mission as well. There was a lot of feedback when the Saga came around, and I was here for it. I did not have a Saga at the time. I have my Seeker right here, which has been amazing and a really good experience. I've never used an Android, so first Android experience too. Never thought I'd see the day. But what key lessons did you take from Saga that directly shaped the Seeker's hardware and software choices? And I guess maybe you could speak to as well, for those who weren't there, maybe some of the main criticisms that you guys received on the saga, as I feel a lot of them were more short-term oriented, whereas the vision is so much bigger and long-term for, what you're trying to do for the space and help teams along the way.
Yeah. So I'll kind of break that into three sort of requisite parts. One is hardware, the second is software, and the third is ecosystem. On the hardware front, we knew we needed to provide something that was a bit more portable. Saga was an impressive device, but a heavy and a big device. And so there's a meaningful percentage of our customer base who are treating this as a secondary device, something that is a more crypto-centric digital passport to their life as opposed to just their primary phone. Now, we still have plenty of users who it is their primary phone, but for those that aren't, it doesn't make sense to carry a huge second device. So we knew we needed to make it smaller and lighter and brighter. Um, on the software front, we felt extremely confident in our approach to Seed Vault in terms of we wanted to provide the best possible crypto security experience on a mobile device. And so while we nailed the security aspect, and that's something we continue to be proud of, we did not appropriately manage the user experience half of that, right? There is generally a spectrum of security and usability in a lot of applications. And so we lean so far for the sake of security that we created what was often just a clunkier signing experience than it had to be for users. So as we came into Seeker, we knew we really wanted to clean that up. We wanted it to feel magical. We wanted it to feel like all the other payment experiences that people are used to in Web 2. And then lastly, on the ecosystem front, obviously we have a much larger addressable market here. But what we learned was successful with Saga is ecosystem teams who see the opportunity, who see the potential of this audience, willing to sign up to build something cool and interesting and unique and exclusive and potentially reward our customers. And so because of that, we are formalizing the program we're now calling Seeker Season. It's taking a lot of those same lessons, like we ended up selling out of Sagas because a couple of the teams, including Bonk, ended up making it a no-brainer for people who didn't yet have one. We wanted to try and recreate that and have an even deeper focus on apps and experiences. And so, yeah, I would say hardware, lighter and brighter, software, keep the same security, just make it a little bit more seamless, and ecosystem, really lean into the exclusivity and rewarding aspects that made Saga such a lightning rod in the community.
Something that you mentioned right there around incentives is something I think crypto really uniquely and pretty famously enables. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, many times a bit more short-term oriented, but I do think it speaks to something a little bit bigger around the value prop for non-crypto users of why this could be enticing as well. Can you speak to that a little bit in thinking about how to build that sustainably into the product and then working with projects that think about it that way as well, rather than what we've seen in the past, which has tended to be, I guess I could say, extractive in many cases.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
It's a really
So
important, unique thing that crypto enables that you don't see in other app ecosystems.
yeah, totally. When you think about kind of the traditional customer acquisition model, companies spend it on things like advertising, targeted advertising or brand advertising or whatever. But the point is they have money and they want to spend it to bring users in. The kind of beautiful thing about crypto is it's permissionless. So you don't need to buy ad real estate on somebody else's site and go through some middle person. Everything's on chain. And so if you want to attract somebody, you can give them a reward. You can give them an incentive. You can give them something to come spend in your app. You can unlock certain experiences. And so that's kind of what differentiates customer acquisition programs in crypto from customer acquisition programs not in crypto. But with that said, it is susceptible to scam and fraud. It's pretty easy to spin up a software wallet on my computer. In the next 5 seconds, I could head into my Chrome browser and add a bunch of accounts all at once. And so if you do want to build acquisition programs and you want to incentivize users to come try and build your product and build a relationship with them, you need to have some assurances that it's a real person. At least some, if not 100%, some more than 50% certainty that you're going to be rewarding somebody who could potentially come use your app and be a long-term spendy user. Because we have sold a phone and delivered them to physical humans, and because as a user goes through and signs transactions, we do biometric checks, we do liveness checks, there's this whole opportunity for developers to build more compelling user acquisition programs that are less susceptible to be gamed. Because for each and every phone, there is one Genesis token that is issued. It's non-transferable. You can't spin up a million of them on a given phone. And so that gives much more confidence to the teams that we've spoken to who do want to offer boosted rewards, who do want to offer different types of drops and incentives. They can feel more confident doing that because a higher percentage of the recipients are likely to come engage with them and become lifetime customers.
And I think the verification or proof of human is so important too, because one of the worst things that you could do is take your limited resources as an early stage startup, allocate them towards rewards, and have them be completely exploited by bots or people who, extract from the platform and never come back again. So I think part of that, obviously, the incentive structure, and then part of it, just how that fits in with the actual use of the product and what it encourages people to do and interact with within your product too, which is, two very difficult things that hopefully we see more teams cracking.
And I think that's been a big focus for us in Seeker season. The teams that I think will continue to rise above the rest, just like Moonwalk, are teams who want to build great experiences. They want to build great products. They want to build great apps. And so if there are incentive programs and acquisition programs that help accelerate their user base for the purpose of getting users who continue to come around and continue to use, that's great. If it's just, I just want to get this token out to a couple people and hopefully they maybe buy or sell it, that's fine. We've certainly seen a lot of programs, a lot of teams doing that. But long term, I'm far more bullish on the teams who are combining a really solid product experience with those incentive programs.
For sure. And what does success look like for Solana Mobile? Whether that's specific to the Seeker, the longer term roadmap, how do you guys measure success and what does that look like to you?
Uh, Long term, we want the software, the platform that we've built to be available to as many users as possible around the world so that a larger percentage of on-chain activity is taking place natively on mobile. So if you think about our competitors, if you will, we're competing with desktop transactions. We're competing with browser, mobile browser and app experiences. Our vision is that native mobile apps are going to be the best place for crypto to succeed. And so that's where we're going to continue to invest our time and resources. We want our platform to be available in as many places as possible. And that's why this past spring, we actually announced that we're opening things up and we're going to be working with additional hardware partners so that alongside the devices that we've built, such as Saga and Seeker, those core software experiences like Seed Vault and the dApp store will be available in even more places in a way that is truly permissionless so that new devices can join the network without having to sign sort of arbitrary agreements with our team.
So cool. And if you're able to speak to this, not sure if you can, what does the interest look like so far on that?
It's a good question. I don't have anything concrete to report right now, but what I'll say is things have come back around. When I had first joined back at the start of 2022 and we knew we were doing this mobile thing, there were a lot of hardware companies sort of poking and prodding. A lot of them want to find differentiation. They want to try and serve customers' needs in a way that maybe the existing operating system and platforms can't. And then things got a little dark there for a while. We ended up in a little bit of a winter and didn't hear from many of those hardware partners. But now things have started to spin back around. So we're feeling exceedingly confident. First and foremost, we're focused on getting Seeker out, making sure that everybody gets their phone, making sure that the experience they have is great. But in parallel, we're starting to have some much more productive conversations. So I'm pretty bullish that in the not so distant future, we'll be able to find the core Solana mobile platform experiences on all types of devices.
Excited to watch that unfold for sure. And just from the early Seeker reviews as well, which have all been sparkling from what I've seen, like just going to be the start. But what keeps you up at night? Maybe a question to end on as well of like, there's definitely a lot of concerns, whether it's around building the physical hardware, around regulation, user education. What keeps you up at night the most, if you had to say?
Um, it is a deep, interesting library of apps available in our store. The things that I worry most about are that you could use this phone and have access to the same apps you can get in the Google Play Store or in the Apple App Store. If we've just built a phone that does the same stuff that the other phones do and carries the same apps that the other phones carry, and the only difference is that some developers don't get charged the same fees, then we weren't successful. Things have to be truly unique, truly different, and that starts and ends with the apps that are built for our store. And so I want to make sure that teams have the support that they need, they get the co-marketing that they need. If there's ways that we can invest in their future, we want to do that, because the what will make Solana mobile and mobile on crypto generally a success is great apps that people actually want to use. It doesn't matter how good or bad our hardware is. If there's no good apps, nobody will care.
And I think that's the end game of crypto in general that sometimes it seems like people glaze over, but it really is just building products that enhance people's lives in some way, in a meaningful way to whatever it is they're using today. And it can't be marginal. It needs to be like a very significant jump. I feel like people are very convenient. They care most about convenience. And if it takes them switching from one product to another, it needs to be for a good reason. So building really unique products with strong value propositions that kind of speak for themselves, I think is pretty critical. What's an app idea you would like to see on the Seeker someday that hasn't been built yet?
Oh, good question. Hmm. I don't know if I've got any one app idea per se. I can tell you that the areas that I'm most excited to see exploration in are, one is generally like deep in and deep in adjacent experiences. I think phones, they have access to so much interesting data. It feels like a no-brainer to start to build network effects around that data. Games have kept the mobile ecosystem alive for the last 15 years. I can't imagine how much money Candy Crush has taken from grandmas all around the world. But I think crypto is sort of known for its casino mechanics. I think maturing some of those mechanics to make them feel more entertainment and games oriented. I think there's a huge mobile opportunity there. And then the last one I would call it is just generally social experiences. Phones started as a social product. Like the very first phone, the reason it existed was to talk to somebody who wasn't in the same room as you. And as phones have continued to evolve over time, and then they came off the wall and then they went into your pocket and they went on the go with you, at the core, it was about connecting to other people. And it just so happened that it wasn't always phone calls that eventually became text messages and then Instagram messages and then whatever else. And so I will be really excited to see how some of the social apps play out in our space, because I think that's just a tremendous opportunity as more and more people come on chain.
I think the more that we're online, the more that we're craving connection as well. So finding new and interesting ways to do that is definitely top of mind. I agree with you there. What
Yeah,
would,
100%.
sorry, excuse me. Um, Last thoughts. What should people be thinking about when it comes to Seeker? Final words for them, final takeaways, anything that we haven't covered that you would want people to know?
Yeah. First off is a huge thank you. Anybody who's bought a Seeker, we like could not be here without you. I know you mentioned the reviews have been positive. It's exciting to see the positive feedback, but I'm also mindful that there's some people anxiously awaiting their phones. We are doing everything we can to get them to as many people around the world. We're shipping to 50 plus countries. We have got a ton of them going out every single day. And so my expectation is that the vast majority of people will have phones in pocket by the time Seeker season kicks off. But if your phone gets held up, if there's a shipping issue, whatever that looks like, just rest assured we have many months ahead of Seeker season, and that the teams who are signing up, whether it's Moonwalk or somebody else, this isn't just a one-time deal. This isn't just a one-week deal. We want this to continue to run and proliferate over time. Seeker season is just about highlighting all of these great exclusive things, not time boxing all of these great exclusive things. So to everyone out there, thank you. Thank you for your patience. And for those who haven't yet purchased a device, we still have more. We're still shipping them out. We're shipping them out very quickly. So head to solanamobile.com/seeker. You can still buy one. There's plenty of interesting and exciting things to come. And I would hate for any of you to miss out.
I would hate that too. Yeah, it's not too late, guys. Get your Seeker if you haven't already. If you haven't gotten it, hang tight. Really excited for everything that's coming up with Seeker season, all of the projects and teams and apps that you've gotten involved. I think it's going to be amazing to see the ecosystem flourish from this. Mobile first is the future, app native is the future. So very excited for everything that you guys are doing, and want to thank you for, pushing the space forward and for your time today. But with that, we will leave it to next time for the second edition of Moon Talks. Thank you so much again, Emmett, for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Caitlin.